Alright, so now what we've done is we've seen how to jump using this nice little quick jump menu up here in the options bar. We've seen how to jump into alternate workspaces, but how about if we wanted to create our own workspace here inside of Photoshop? This is something that I find myself doing a lot for specific tasks when I'm working inside of Photoshop. If I'm processing a specific type of image, or if I'm working on a specific type of project like a web banner, or if I'm working on a video file or something like that, I set up my own workspace that corresponds to each one of those different type of projects. So anytime you need to create your own workspace, it's very, very simple to do. So let's go ahead now, we'll reset this to the default workspace, and we'll go ahead then and build a custom workspace based on what we're going to want to do here inside of Photoshop. For instance, if I wanted to have a little bit more room down here in the layers panel, I could come down here and I can resize that like so. And let's say, for instance, that I wanted to not see the color panels or the swatches or styles. I still want them to be on screen, but I just want to hide them. So let's go ahead and double click those so that they're hidden there. And then now we've got this large layers panel here. And then we've also got our navigator and information panels up here at the top. So we've got all of those set like we like them. And let's say then again that we wanted to maybe move in the actions panel here. So let's move the actions panel up into the top, and we'll dock that right to the top of the navigator panel as well. So when you're docking panels together, you'll notice that there's a little blue line that appears when you're getting ready to move them on top of something else, or a little blue bounding box that appears when you're moving them into another group. So let's drag this out and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. When I'm dragging this up, you'll see the blue bounding box appears around these panels, indicating that I'm going to drop it into that specific group of panels. So if I drop that in, the actions panel goes right in there and adds to those previous panels you see there. Now if I want to drag that back out again, all I do is click and drag on the tab and drag it outside. Now let's go ahead and move it back in, and I want it at the top this time, so we'll drag it over until I see that blue bar. Then once that blue bar appears, we're just going to let go and drop it in, and you see there it automatically docks itself to the top of these other two panels here, and it is also dynamically resizable as the rest of them are. So anytime you want to dock panels together, just go ahead and make sure you look for those blue bounding boxes, or on the Macintosh side it would actually be a black bounding box or a black line above the user interface option. So anytime you see those bounding boxes or lines appear, you know that's when you need to go ahead and drop your panel that you're trying to move. So let's go ahead and say this is my finished workspace, one that I'm going to be using throughout my workflow inside of Photoshop. And let's go ahead and we'll save this workspace now. So in order to do that, we no longer have to go up to the window menu. We can just simply come to the workspace fly down menu here, and we can come all the way down to the bottom and we'll choose save workspace. Now I'll go ahead and call this Justin1, and I'm going to save palette locations. We'll save keyboard shortcuts and menus. In just a moment I'll show you how to actually change your keyboard shortcuts and menus. Now you'll notice in here that it says palette locations, and you've heard me say that they've changed the name from palettes to panels, and apparently they just haven't got around to updating these little dialog boxes inside of Photoshop CS3, but trust me, they have renamed these to panels, so the fact that it says palette locations shouldn't throw you. It's the same thing. They're just going to save the panel locations, and it just says palettes instead of panels here inside this dialog box. So once you have all these options checked, we're going to go ahead now and we'll click save, and that workspace is now saved within Photoshop, and you can get to it at any time you want to. So if I jump back to the default workspace here and reset it, this is how it originally looks when we jumped into Photoshop CS3. If I want to ever get back to that workspace, I can go ahead now and I can select Justin1 from the workspace jump menu. It'll tell me that the selected workspace will modify my menus and keyboard shortcuts again. That's totally okay, and this time I'm going to go ahead and say don't show that again, because I don't want that popping up every single time I switch between workspaces here inside of Photoshop. So I'll go ahead and click yes, and then automatically it's reset it to the actions panel being on top. You have the navigator, histogram, information panel, the color panel is collapsed, and then we have our large layers panel here at the bottom. So this is just how to quickly and easily create your own workspace inside of Photoshop CS3 to make it more functional and fitting to your workflow.